It's time now for Countywide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Jen Cohen as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives in Yavapai County. And now, here's today's Countywide.
Welcome to Countywide. I'm Paul David. As always, it is great to have you in studio today. We've got a special project to talk about today with Nature Conservancy Director of Land and Water Protection, Heather Reading.
Hi.
How are you?
Good morning, Paul. I'm great. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Welcome to studio. Website for you to keep in mind is nature.org. Simple as that, nature.org. And you can find out, do they have to do anything once they get there to find out what we're talking about today?
Navigate to Arizona.
Navigate to Arizona.
And it will take you to where we work. And you can learn about our local work here in the Verde Valley as well as throughout the state.
And I've been learning from Heather that there's all kinds of things in the works and have been for, well, you said a decade now.
A decade or more.
Right.
The Nature Conservancy actually started working here in the Verde Valley in the 1980s on the Verde River Greenway, which was then a 6-mile stretch of river, and then we assisted Arizona State Parks in expanding that to a 40-mile stretch.
Which stretch of river was that first chunk you were talking about? Is it Cottonwood?
It was here in Cottonwood.
Okay, okay.
Yes.
So I want to think it's like Tabasi Marsh, maybe? That
yes,
area?
Dead Horse State Park was the focus of the Greenway.
Okay, all right, and it just keeps growing. There was a project called the String of Pearls. Are you familiar with that one?
Yes.
Okay, is that part of Nature Conservancy as well?
Yes, it actually grew out of that into a much broader project. That is focused on conserving the entire river system.
Okay, and then if I remember right, the String of Pearls is what we were calling it. If I remember right, this is like, I want to say a few years ago.
Yeah,
that I
it was a few years back.
Yeah, just little areas that people could get in and out, access the river conveniently in kayaks and canoes, and enjoy the Verde River. And it's nature.
Yes, yes, and that was very much focused on recreational access through the Verde Front effort. But it's grown into so much more now. Yeah,
yeah, we're going to get into that today. We'll get into part of that today anyways. Why don't we start at the beginning, because some folks may not know what the Nature Conservancy is. So what is the Nature Conservancy?
The Nature Conservancy is the largest global nonprofit conservation organization. We work in all of the 50 U.S. states and territories and across the globe in over 60 countries. And we have specific state chapters that are run fairly autonomously, but we do coordinate our conservation goals with the broader global organization.
Okay, all right. That's quite an answer. That's quite. I did a story with the Nature Conservancy, I want to say, earlier this year. Who's the director in Arizona?
The director is Pat Graham.
It was Pat Graham I spoke to, and it was about the forest restoration, the forestry projects, and how the Nature Conservancy has come up with some technology that helps move along that process, and maybe takes a look and says, okay, it takes this long to do this project. How could we possibly make it go a little bit shorter and be more profitable? Because that's one thing we're having a hard time with, is getting people to come in and harvest the wood. But I remember talking to him about that. I thought it was very interesting. That you guys are busy in all kinds of different areas. Yeah.
We are. Our mission is to conserve the lands and waters on which all life depends. But we do that in a very science-based way. We're also very focused on economics and socioeconomic solutions. So it's policy work, it's science, and then it's on-the-ground projects that are designed to benefit both nature and people.
We want more. If you look anywhere in the state of Arizona, wherever you live, nature is right outside your back door pretty much. I know it is outside my back door. So, and you're from the Prescott area, so we know how that is too. It's just, we're all surrounded by by nature. Let's get into it, shall we? The project you came to talk about today. We'll talk about other ones too, but we've kind of punch listed a few of them right there.
We did.
The Park Central Farm Project. Tell us all about this one.
So the Park Central Farm Project is a voluntary land conservation agreement. It's also known as a conservation easement that the Nature Conservancy and our partners entered into with Hauser and Hauser Farms.
In Camp Verde.
In Camp Verde. So it's local. And it is, the Park Central Farm is the largest commercially operated farm in the Verde Valley. The conservation easement protects over 500 acres, and it links up already protected lands. Rock and River Ranch State Park is next door, and the Conservancy's Shield Ranch property to create 3 miles of protected river corridor and important streamside forest, and also about 1,000 acres of habitat for wildlife and fish.
That's a huge chunk of land. So how did this all come about? Did Hauser and Hauser approach you? I mean, everyone in the Verde Valley is familiar with Hauser and Hauser Farms, but how did the whole project kind of come about?
Well, we've been working with the Hauser family for a long time now. We've been working with them not only on conservation easement projects, but also on irrigation efficiency projects that are designed to keep more flows in the river by improving water management, and also converting flood to drip irrigation and crop conversions, which are a new project that the Conservancy and the Hausers are working on together.
Maybe we should hit that really quick, a little bit.
Sure.
Because was it last year? Time flies for me anymore, so I'm not sure if it was last year, if it was the year before, but I remember we received a press release that Hauser and Hauser Farms was going to start growing barley.
Yes, it was just last year.
Okay.
And Hauser and Hauser Farms have converted about 150 acres now this year into barley, which is a low water use crop. It is a winter crop, and they were converting their higher water use corn crop into barley. We started that out as an experimental project, and it went really well. There's not a lot of incentive for farmers to grow barley. It's commonly grown here in Arizona, but it's grown for livestock feed, and it's not very profitable. So there's not much incentive to switch to that type of a crop. However, we discovered that malted barley for beer is very profitable.
And with all the microbreweries, of course.
Yes, it's a highly desirable product. However, there wasn't a malt house here locally that could produce the malts, the malted barley that's needed for beer. And so the Conservancy is now also partnering with Sinagua Malt, that is the first local malt house, and just started production very, very recently.
And where are they located?
They are located in Camp Verde.
Okay.
And they are an Arizona B corporation. It's a charitable corporation whose charitable corporations are unique in that they have a goal of achieving their benefit purpose, which in this case is river conservation. And not just maximizing shareholder profits.
Okay.
So they are dedicated also to river conservation.
Well, that's amazing. Okay. We got to get back to the Park Central Farm project, and we got to take a break here in a couple of minutes too. But before we do that, you said now this Sinagua Malt
House.
The Sinagua Malt House. It's actually going to it's going to be used. We've got beer being made with that.
Yes.
So we have it from growth. Concept of growth and winter crop and conserve water to we've got our own malt house now in the Verde Valley that's making it, and then it's being shipped out to be turned into beer where?
Arizona Wilderness Brewing Company in Gilbert recently, just this last weekend, released the first batch of beer. It's a Saison that was created with Sinagua malt. So we're very happy to see that happening. But we're even more happy to see how much water is being saved in the river. Last year it was about 110 million gallons of water that was left in the river in summer, which is the time that the river needs the water the most.
I'm glad you had that number, 110 million gallons.
Yes.
That's a huge number.
It's a huge number.
That is a huge number. Okay, let's take a break. Nature.org for more information, then just find your way to Arizona from there. Nature Conservancy Director of Land and Water Protection had the reading in studio today. This is Countywide. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
It appears these hot ashes are about to be dumped, which could possibly start a wildfire. How will Smokey deal with such a hot situation? The garden hose defense. Next, a thorough stir. Then another spray. And finally, feeling if the ashes are cool.
Oh, yeah.
Ah, yes, the selfie. A ritual practiced so frequently with this tribe, but not so much by Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Being prepared is a part of who you are. But it's especially important in the case of a disaster. Be informed about possible emergencies in your area. Make a plan that covers where you'll go in an emergency. Build a kit with the things you need to survive. There's no one more capable of planning for your situation than you. Start your plan today. Go to ready.gov/myplan.
Welcome back to Countywide. We're talking with Heather Redding, Nature Conservancy Director of Land and Water Protection, and we're talking about the Park Central Farm project. Now, we kind of brushed through a bunch of different things, so maybe we should talk a little bit more about that. We talked about it's adjacent to Rockin' River Ranch State Park, so that adds, you said, about 1,000 acres total land,
yes.
3 miles of river, and 1,000 acres of land. When you made this agreement with the Hauser & Hauser Farms, and I think Game and Fish was involved as well.
Yes.
Right, and then...
And also the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service. Okay. Those are our 2 primary partners, as well as the Nina Mason Pulliam Charitable Trust that provided funding for the project. So we have a lot of different partners involved, and it was a very complex project to bring together, but everyone is really fantastic to work with and made it happen actually very quickly.
Okay.
The USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service provided funding through the Farm Bill. And this was the second Farm Bill conservation easement that we had done with the Hauser family. The first was over their farm in downtown Camp Verde. It's their main farm where the corn stand is located. So those of us that are local, we all know and love their sweet corn.
Oh, yeah.
And so that farm is also protected with the conservation easement. And that includes about 1 mile of river corridor as well.
And when you say protected, what does that mean?
So by protected, what we mean is that the development rights have been removed, and the Nature Conservancy holds those in trust, essentially. So residential housing is no longer a use for the property, but it continues to be farmed. And also, the river corridor is protected from removal of native vegetation, the important streamside forest, which is so important for our native wildlife and all of the migratory birds and river otters, beaver, and fish that use that.
Okay, all right. So it's protected. So no development on this 1,000 acres. What can it be used for?
It can be used for farming. It can be used for recreational purposes, passive recreation like kayaking, fishing, hiking, camping, those sorts of things. Camping will be available at Rockin' River Ranch State Park soon.
Sure, sure. Okay, and then this is till the end of time?
This is till the end of time.
Is there any way to wiggle out of it, though?
No, there's not. It is a forever farm, and that's really wonderful because the land stays in private ownership. It's managed by the Hauser family, the private landowners, and then can be passed on to future generations for farming.
Okay, okay. It was nice that Rockin' River Ranch State Park, that was Nature Conservancy too. That was your property, but the way you came about it was kind of interesting.
Yes, we actually purchased the property in 2007 with funding from the Arizona Heritage Fund, and it was slated to be developed into residential housing at fairly high densities. So instead, now it's going to become Arizona's newest state park.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think we talked about that. I want to say it was several months ago. We had somebody in talk about that as well, and kind of what was being done at the park. And they had pictures of it with the horses on it and everything else. It was just beautiful. So, yeah, fantastic. So this land, I think a lot of us know what kind of species live on the land, but you mentioned some fish. We got the willow flycatcher, which is native to that area as well. Is it that area good for it?
Yes, it is critical habitat for willow flycatcher, and also for yellow-billed cuckoo, which is an imperiled bird as well.
Yellow-billed cuckoo. I don't think I've ever seen one. Maybe I have seen one. I didn't know I saw it.
Well, come visit, and we've got nesting yellow-billed cuckoos in that corridor of the river.
Oh, no kidding. Okay, all right. And then, of course, that circle of life. It takes care of everything from the smallest animal to the largest animal. That's what it's there for. So we're holding on to it and protecting it forever and ever. Hauser & Hauser, did they approach you on this, or did you guys approach Hauser & Hauser on this?
Well, like I said, we've been working with the Hauser family for a long time now.
Mm-hmm.
They're great to partner with. They'll try things with us that, you know, switching crops from high water use crops like corn to barley has been very successful. But sometimes they take risks with us and try things like converting flood irrigation to drip irrigation that ends up in green pumpkins in October, which is not the desired outcome.
Okay.
So they're great partners.
Okay. Oh, I guess we did have that. Okay. Right. Okay. Let's talk about some of the other projects, because I mean we've hit a few. We've got the Rockin' River Ranch State Park. We got the Park Central Farm project. Those two huge projects in Camp Verde, plus the Hauser & Hauser original farm. Is it right to say the original farm or the main farm?
I'd say the corn stand farm.
I think
that's what everyone knows it as.
Okay. I think I've done their commercial for the Hauser & Hauser sweet corn for I don't know how many years. So I imagine that ad will be running here very shortly as well, because it's just about corn season again. You mentioned that land was, and this is a little off topic, but I think some people will find it very interesting, that there was a movie made out there.
Yes, at Park Central Farm, that was the filming location, or at least one of the filming locations for Kingdom of the Spiders.
With William Shatner.
Yes, back in, I believe, the 70s.
Yeah.
So it's really fun to watch that now. The old farmhouse is still there. All of the farm fields are essentially the same, but the river corridor looks very different. There's a lot more vegetation now and improved wildlife habitat.
I'll have to watch back at that just to see just the old shots of the area.
I recommend it. It's
just
a lot
for that,
of fun.
just for that in general, just do that. Maybe some other projects that are going on in the Verde Valley that we don't know the Nature Conservancy is involved in. What are some of the other ones?
So we're working with Friends of the Verde River on the Verde River Exchange Water Offset Program, which is designed to offset groundwater usage when voluntarily landowners forego some of their water usage, their irrigation during a season, and that creates a water offset credit to essentially offset the footprint of water use by local residents and businesses.
Okay. So if I decide I'm not going to flood my yard today, because I know that's a thing. They go up the ditch, they pull the gate open and flood the yard. They've got a certain amount of time.
Yes.
And then boom, close the gate, and then the water continues to move forward. So if I live, I know that's practiced in, I guess it's all across from Cottonwood all the way through Camp Verde.
Yes, it's valley-wide.
Okay.
And that, just to back up a little bit, that's one of the reasons that we are trying to protect these large farm properties with conservation easements, is that when residential properties or farm properties develop into residences, they retain their irrigation rights. And often the irrigation is not as efficient as it once was when it was a farm. Also, individual wells go in, pumping groundwater next to the river corridor, which has a drawdown effect on the river in some places.
Okay.
So it's a big impact in terms of water use.
So then if I don't open my gate for the day, I get, what, credit?
Well, it's designed to be a very balanced program, and so it's based on acreage. So it would be a certain, say, number of acres in a field that you have or a pasture, and then it would be through the season. So you would not be able to irrigate for the irrigation season, and that could be turned into a credit. Okay.
So I suppose if they wanted more information about this, anybody that uses the irrigation throughout the Verde Valley, they could contact Nature Conservancy and find out more about it.
And also Verde River Exchange, if you just Google that, it'll take you to their website.
Verde River Exchange. Okay,
yes.
Verde River Exchange. Verde River Exchange. Remember that, Verde River Exchange. Let's take our second break, okay? Nature Conservancy Director of Land and Water Protection, Heather Redding, in studio today. The website is nature.org. Stick around, Countywide back in just a couple minutes.
This is Bruce Morrow, Transportation Manager for Cottonwood Area Transit. Remember, we cover the entire Verde Valley and Sedona. Cottonwood Area Transit has you covered wherever you want to ride in the Verde Valley, all day, every day. Take Cottonwood Area Transit through Clarkdale, Verde Village, and from 26 locations in Cottonwood. With Verde Links, it's a quick and easy trip to Sedona every day. Don't forget our connectors to Camp Verde. Visit cottonwoodaz.gov for Cottonwood Area Transit and take a seat. Let's go ride.
What to expect when you're expecting.
Like here?
A teenager.
Today, I'm going to show you how to teen-proof your home. First step, hide the car keys. Preferably somewhere they would never look. Challenges will come up. Be ready for them. Hi, honey.
Ready for the... Mom, you don't use mannequins in the mannequin challenge.
You don't have to know it all to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
If you don't fix them, sparks from dragging tow chains could cause a wildfire, and that could be scary. Hi, Smokey. Only you can prevent wildfires.
Welcome back to Countywide. Just a few minutes left in the program. Heather wants to talk about one more thing going on, the Salt and Verde Alliance. What is the Salt and Verde Alliance?
Yes, the Salt and Verde Alliance is a collaboration of 14 different communities from upstream here in the Verde Valley all the way down to the Phoenix metropolitan area that have come together to create a sustainable funding source and improved water management throughout the watershed, as well as forest management.
Is it working?
Are
we seeing it working?
It's brand new, but it is a great collaboration that did bring funding to the Park Central Farm Conservation Easement Project, as well as many other projects that we're working on here in the Verde Valley that benefit river flows, as well as wildlife habitat, and then that in turn benefits the downstream water users in metropolitan Phoenix.
Do you think the Verde River is under more of a microscope now than it ever used to be before? Just because it's one of the only rivers we have in the state. Is it the only river we have in the state that flows?
It's not necessarily the only river in the state that flows. There is the Colorado.
It's a natural river, though, that flows through the state.
But it is a very natural river system, and it is under a lot of pressure due to drought, population growth, groundwater pumping, and it's a critical water supply. It supplies about a third of the water to metropolitan Phoenix.
Well, I think it's under a much bigger microscope than it was, say, when I started doing news maybe 20 years ago. I don't think the Verde River was quite a focus as it is today. There's a lot of different groups that keep track of the Verde River and how things are going. Yes. Volunteers? Do you guys need volunteers?
We can always use volunteers.
What do volunteers do for you?
We have all kinds of projects. We've got a variety of projects at our preserve that range from habitat work to trails work. We've got outreach projects. We even have administrative needs.
Okay, all right. So, I bet if I went to nature.org,
yes, you could find those.
Nature.org/Arizona or something like that, and I could probably find all kinds of information about that. All right, well, that was quite a punch list. Park Central Farm Project, Rocket River Ranch State Park, Salt and Verde Alliance. We talked about barley today.
Yes.
Talked about beer today, of all things. Just a gamut of things going on along the Verde River throughout the Verde Valley.
Yes, we're working on all kinds of innovative and fun projects, and there'll be more good work to come.
Yeah, I would go to the website and do some research on the Nature Conservancy and find out what they're all about and what they've got going on. Heather, thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks, Paul. I appreciate it.
You bet. All right, that's today's Countywide. Again, the website is nature.org. Thanks for watching and listening, and we'll talk to you again next time.